Hello there. It's time I put together another little video here because something's on my mind and I just can't shake it. And this is for my students. And this is for anybody who will be my student. And this is for any gong player who is not my student. Food for thought. So let's go back to the very beginning of my gong adventure when I was on the telephone with my new compadre, Matthew Connors, who had at that time a massive collection of gongs. I think it was somewhere around 20. And I didn't know anything. I mean, I literally had never played a gong. And I was basically depending on him for guidance. And we had determined that if the house was on fire, he would take out of his house an Utkin symphonic 40-inch gong. And I was like, boom, that's my first gong. And then somehow, I don't know, the fact that he had 20 gongs or whatever it was like intriguing to me. And so I was, well, man, look, you got 20. Let's talk about a second gong. And I decided, like, I didn't know anything about gongs. I knew about saxophones. I had been playing a saxophone for 20 years. And then I thought, well, I want some uniformity of sound with the gongs. That I know. So that it's somewhat like a saxophone. That was my first idea. And so I was like, well, maybe I should get another size symphonic gong. Today, I wouldn't do that. Today, I know better than that. I would tell my younger self, Alan, my little brother, don't get a different size symphonic. Get either a same size of a different kind or a much smaller gong that can complement the 40-inch symphonic. That's what I would say now, but that's with the wealth of all these subsequent years of experience. Anyway, so I did get that 36-inch and the 40-inch symphonic, and as a beginner, I couldn't make the two of them sound well together. And I lived in a small town in Oregon on the West Coast. I wasn't near any other kinds of gong players or gong providers. And so I had those two gongs, and I didn't have money to buy any other kinds of gongs. And this is very important to know. I wasn't well-heeled. My wife was getting her PhD, and I was like, I was driving Uber at the time, actually, and I sold my car to pay for the gongs. Funny, huh? I always tell people I sold a car to get spaceships. Anyway, it just shows you what my priorities are like. So I didn't have even the money from Uber anymore. I was like basically very low on funds. We were getting by. It was okay. But no money for new gongs, that's for sure. And so I had these two gongs, the 36-inch and the 40-inch symphonic, and that's all I had for 3 years. And I played each one of those gongs individually, intensively. I played them for hours. Probably I put 10,000 hours on each of those gongs. And that was a blessing. So here we are in 2024, and I have students who have money. And with money comes possibility. And with possibility comes temptation. And I just want to give you my opinion, perspective, experience, And actually, it's more than that. It's like a real wish. It's a sincere wish that other gong players would understand what I'm about to say. And that is, a gong is a musical instrument. It is a universe in itself, one gong. And a universe, or think of it as a country, that's maybe more easy to grasp. A country is not merely beautiful waterfalls, rainbows, unicorns farting those rainbows. It's not that. It's also the man at passport control that wants to interrogate you. It's also being stuck in traffic, or the waiter or waitress that's rude to you because you don't speak their language. It's also the pickpocket that steals your wallet. That's also what it is to be in a foreign country, a new country. And so it is also with the gong. When you get a new gong, you get to a place after the initial, oh, I love it, it's so wonderful, it's so curious, it's so new. There comes a moment where you're playing a sound that you don't quite like, or you hear a sound that you want to create again, or you hear one beautiful little sound surrounded by a whole bunch of other sounds and you wish that little sound was bigger. These are the things that happen. And in my experience, they happen to every gong player. And I mean, if you have an aesthetic opinion, if you have any kind of taste, you're going to have things you like, things you don't like. And with that comes creative tension. So creative tension is, I want A, I want B, but I'm getting A. So then the question is, do you figure out how to get to B, or do you negotiate with what it is you want to release the tension? Because the tension has to go. The part about tension is you got to release tension. So you're either going to figure out how to get to B, or you're going to have to figure out how to let go of your idea of what you want so that the tension is gone. And at that point, where too many times we come to the place where we're either frustrated or not inspired anymore, or whatever, something we don't like. It's under the surface. It's not necessarily right on top of the surface. So this is something that happens as a slight discomfort, and we may not notice it. And what happens at that point, because there's no real tradition in what we're doing as gong players of how to proceed at this moment. If you're playing classical Western music or classical Indian music or even jazz or any kind of music, there's a tradition of how to get past this moment, like how to work. And there isn't such a tradition with gong players. And then what I've seen over and over again is that what they do then is they go back and start shopping for a new gong. They want to have that feeling again of being in love, of being curious, of going to another foreign country. And so then they'll buy another gong, and that doesn't solve the problem. It makes the problem worse. Because what you've done is you've added crazy complexity. Like when you buy a second gong, you don't just have two gongs. You now have, let's say, 4 gongs, 2 to the second power, because it's like crazy amount of new possibilities of sounds come. And that's not a good thing. That is not a good thing. It's not a good thing because you don't know how to realize the possibilities with the single gong in front of you. And without knowing how to realize those possibilities, you're going to come to the same point of tension with the new gong. And with the combination of how they play, it's going to happen even faster. So, and if you're spiritually inclined and you buy into spiritual propaganda, you'll say, oh, it's all good. It's all good. It's okay. Or I'm not going to play with my ego. I'm just going to channel from Pallades and then just play this and it's going to be okay. So you then don't take responsibility for what you're doing or the outcome of what you're doing. Or you'll end up buying a third gong and then you end up with 20. And then like actually my friend, Matthew, the guy who was advising me, he ended up selling all his gongs except for that 40-inch symphonic, which is interesting. And he said because he wanted to go deeper. It made sense to me. So rather than to buy a bunch of gongs, you need to find a way to get through this tension and to learn a creative process and a way of honest feedback and gentleness with yourself so that you can actually work and create different behaviors, different ways of playing, tiny little changes that will create something you like. And then in that process, you learn your gong. You really learn that country you've arrived at. Then you're ready to buy a gong. And so then I think I've been sort of I haven't really been clear enough with my students on this point. I think that they see me and I have 8 or 10 gongs in a circle, and they think that to get what they want from the experience, like they want to play like me, okay? They came to my sessions, they saw how I play, and they want to do something similar. Not necessarily copy it, but at least imitate it to some degree and then create their own style. And so they without me giving them this guidance that I'm giving you in this video, what they think probably is that to get, like they need a lot of gongs to do what I do. But I got to tell you, that's a little bit like a person that wants to get rich thinks that they need to live in a house like Bill Gates to be rich. And it's not true. You have to do the work that Bill Gates did in some form or fashion to get the money, then you can live in the house. The reason I can have 8 gongs is because I worked like a devil on one gong at a time until I understood how to learn and how to work through challenges and then be in the flow with one, and then I could do it with another one, and then I could do it with 1 + 1 and how they work together. So it works in this progression, in my opinion, okay? And everybody may have their own journey and their own opinion, but this is mine. All right, I hope that helps, and auf Wiedersehen.